Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. This week we're talking bees and honey with Ed Forney and Charles Walter. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
All right, let's start. How did you get into bees?
Charles, you got into it before I did, so you can go first.
Well, with me it was in school. It was 12 years. A teacher brought in an observation hive, and that day the class was about bees, and from that day on I got stung with it and been in it since then, on and off. Of course, some places where I live I couldn't have them, and other places where I could, I had them.
Ed?
Well, my wife got into it as a hobby, and I thought she was absolutely out of her mind. When saying that, I couldn't see how it can be a fun hobby. I couldn't see how putting my head in a box of bees could be enjoyable at all. I soon found that it was kind of cool, and it's been a hobby out of control since then.
And when was that? When did you get started?
She started 7 years ago. I started 6.
All right, where are you guys now on bees and honey? Tell us about your business.
Well, our business is Geezer Ridge Farm, and we're located in Hedgesville. We are a Man Lake dealer. Man Lake is the largest distributor manufacturer of bee equipment. And we actually got into that because we started growing where it was beneficial for us to be a distributor, just to buy stuff cheaper. And then in the bee community, it's pretty tight-knit, and people would show up and say, hey, if you can get this at a better price, can you get it for me? And I said, sure. And now we are the largest on the East Coast. So it's grown that way. And on our bees, we started with 6 hives, and now we have hundreds.
Charles?
Well, for me, it was, all I wanted was enough bees to produce enough honey to sweeten my wife's tea. It got out of control. I'm up to 325, 350 hives, depending on when you ask. And
Who do you sell honey to?
All over the place.
What's the name of it?
The business is Walter's Wholesome Goods.
And we can drive over to Berkeley County and buy some honey from you?
Right. Mostly is mail order, but yeah, you could show up and get some honey. Yes, sir.
All right. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk birds and bees. How is honey made? What is honey and how is it made?
Well, the bees, it's a condensed nectar, right? They go to the flowers, they collect the nectar, bring it down. This is in a nutshell, right? Get the water out of it to 15, 17, 18% humidity, and then it's capped, right? That's in a nutshell.
Is honey bee vomit?
Actually, they have a different sac that they store this nectar, right? So it's not in their stomach, but it's in a different compartment. So it's not really vomit, but yeah, they have to bring it up again out of the sac. They regurgitate
it.
Right.
But it's not a stomach, so it's not technically vomit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the honey goes out and gets the nectar.
The bee.
The bee goes out and gets the nectar. And there's this process, and then spits it out into a comb.
Well, the field bee will bring it back and give it to what we call a house bee, a worker bee that at that point her job is to do stuff within the hive. And then she will go ahead and place it in the cell. Of course, there are enzymes added and all of that stuff in the process.
Why is some honey different from other honey?
It's the varietals, the floral source, right? I mean, you could have, for example, black locust blooming. So that honey would be different. That will be a lighter honey, what they call water white honey. And it will be milder honey. It's what Americans like. It will be a nice table honey. You can have Japanese knotwood. That will be a dark honey with a little more character. Europeans like that honey, the type of honey.
And around here, Eastern Panhandle honey, where are the bees getting the nectar from primarily?
There are several sources. So if you blend your honey, if you're not into varietal honey, you're going to call that wildflower, right? So you have some Russian olive, you'll have whatever's blooming, brambles. Especially if you don't collect your honey until August or the fall, you will have a mixture of all of those things. So you will have a blend. So you will call that wildflower, because you can't say it's locust honey because it may have locust, tulip poplar, and all of those things.
And where you are in Berkeley County, the bees, you don't actually grow flowers. They just go out and get the nectar from whatever's there.
That's right. Yeah, whatever's in bloom, that's where they go and get their.
And what's in bloom where you are?
Well, it depends on the time of the year. The first floral source that can generate a crop for us is the Russian olive. Well, some call it autumn olive, but Russian olive is what
No, it's an olive tree?
It's an invasive that was brought in for hedge, and now it's all over the place. Yeah. So that's one of the crops that's one of the sources that will generate a crop for us. Then after that, of course, you have the locust, the black locust, following the tulip poplar, then your brambles. Those are the main sources in my area.
Are you making a living from honey?
That's a part-time for me.
Is
I
it
have
part-time?
a full-time job, but yeah, it's a
What's
part-time.
your full-time?
I work for the Food and Drug Administration
In Martinsburg? Or?
in Rockville.
In Rockville. So this is it's more than a hobby, but you make some money on it.
Right.
Ed, you grow bees,
We grow bees.
and are you making a living at it?
Yes, we are.
And so after 7 years, it's a full-time job for you.
Yeah, it's been a full-time job for a couple years. We had initially started when I decided to have this bright idea to be a commercial beekeeper. We were going to be a pollinator, as far as you may have 800, 1,000, 2,000 colonies and go around the country and pollinate. Unfortunately, I had a health scare, and I was about a month of being incapacitated. And since then, I've gained a large amount of weight because my body doesn't work like it used to. So at this weight of 100 pounds more than I was a couple years ago, I can't do the physical labor that a pollinator would have to do as far as loading, unloading, setting up, feeding. This is too much. So we pivoted into then selling bees, because that's something that is a lot less labor intensive. It's obviously not the income you would get sending your bees across the country for almond pollination and such. But yeah, it's a very viable business and a good income.
What is a pollinator? What does a pollinator do?
Oh, a pollinator, for example, if we're talking about the person, the pollinator would, let's say we have 460 hives as far as colonies of bees. When you think of a conventional beehive, we have 460 of those. We load them on a truck, put a big net over them, and we would drive that tractor trailer to wherever, like for instance in the eastern panhandle here, we have a lot of pollinators that come in to pollinate apple trees. You know, for example, apple trees need on average, and there's always a exception to it, but about 2 hives per acre.
So the apple orchards that we see in Berkeley County,
Right.
the people who own those orchards would actually hire a pollinator
Right, they will
to
rent-
bring in
right,
bees and
correct.
just drive them through the orchard?
Well, they place them.
They place them.
Yeah, they place them using tow motors and that are designed for rugged terrain, and yeah, they're placed. So, for instance, if you have a 300-acre orchard, now they need 600 hives brought in.
You sell bees to people who want to make honey.
People who want to make honey, people that are trying to help the environment locally, because bees pollinate everything. From crops, if they have a small garden, they will get a yield like they've never seen before. Some people have 8 or 10 apple trees, for example. And we tell them, if you've never had bees on your property, make sure that you have pruned the trees or you have ropes tying the branches into the main body, because the fruits, they will bear fruits like it's never had before, and branches break. So we have folks that do that just for their own use. Like Charles started, to just have enough tea to, or just have enough honey to sweeten tea. And people look at him and they just cannot fathom how he can handle 350 hives and work. A lot of people are just exasperated because they have 4 of them. So
You spend a lot of time. What's the state of beekeeping in West Virginia?
it's doing better. It's doing better. There's a lot of figures out there floating around on bee mortality. And a lot of it has to do with classifications of beekeeper. Is it from a commercial beekeeper? Is it a sideline beekeeper? Or a backyard beekeeper? Now, the 3 distinguishing characteristics, a backyard beekeeper, if you decided, Russell, you're going to be a beekeeper, you would get 2 or 3 colonies and put them in your backyard, hence the name backyard beekeeper. A sideline beekeeper.
How much could I get? How much honey could I get from that, by the way? Just doing a couple.
If you had an extraordinary year, it would be conceivable for you to get 300 pounds. I mean, if Charles works his bees well, he would get 500 pounds from them. Okay, so if you're selling your honey at $10 a pound and you got 500 pounds, it's pretty simple to do the math.
What if I just wanted honey for myself? Is it worth having bees just for that?
As long as you have a lot of friends to give it away to, yes.
They make good Christmas gifts.
They make wonderful Christmas gifts. So yes, and for people that don't really want to get into the honey business, they'll bottle it in 2-ounce bottles and work with the florist, and it'll go out, in floral arrangements.
But there's real incredible interest in beekeeping. And you were telling me before we went on air that there's a group here in Morgan County. Tell us
Yes.
about how that started and what's happening there.
Well, when we looked at there are some bee clubs. They actually are not as many as there used to be. But they have the West Virginia Beekeepers Association, and they have a series of clubs. For instance, at Geezer Ridge Farm, we operate a group. We don't really have a club, but it's a group, and it's recognized by the state. Nobody was really servicing Morgan County. We had people we knew were beekeepers out here, but there just wasn't a network. And when you have the network, what that allows you to do is, for example, we meet at the Earth Dog Cafe here in town. Every second Tuesday, we roll in about 6 and order dinner, and we start I don't want to say a program, but we start a program around 6:30.
And how many people regularly show up?
I think the most we've ever had was around 55. But what is nice is people that have no idea if they want to get into beekeeping or not will show up. People that want to get into beekeeping will show up, and people who are into beekeeping will show up. So they can answer each other's questions as they have questions. Charles and I, we have a lecture series that we put on monthly, and we do it at James Rumsey, for instance, over in Martinsburg. And we bring in the nation's leading geneticists and such coming into there. It gives the local community, including Morgan County, a way to come in and ask questions to the leading scientists in the field. So what we're trying to do is get rid of my favorite saying, the voodoo and pixie dust, when it comes to, because this is biology. It's livestock. It's controlled by the Department of Agriculture. They are livestock, and unfortunately, there's a lot of wives' tales. And
Well, let's talk about some of the news that people read about, that bees are in decline, and that a big reason is pesticide use, overuse of pesticides.
Well, I mean, those are part of the environmental stressors, but which have a significant impact on the honeybee's immune system. But that said, we also have a pest called the varroa mite, which is, to me, it's the gateway to everything else, right? It'll go attach itself to the bee, and suck, eat upon the bee vitellogenin, which is the fat of the bee, and in doing that, it creates this hole, and now that's a way where other bacteria, parasite, viruses could come in as well, right? So the mite is a vector to these, opportunist secondary. And when you have the mite plus the environmental stressors plus your virus load, then this contributes to
How do you attack the mite? I mean, what do you do about mites?
Well, I mean, I use a product that has been developed for that.
Is it a pesticide?
It's a miticide, yes.
It's a miticide. So what about the effect of that on bees? Does it have an effect?
It kills the mite.
It kills the mite, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the beekeeping community can go at times a little sideways.
How so?
You have folks that, like, for example, Charles has 350 colonies of bees. There's a substantial monetary investment there. Charles can only make honey if he has good, healthy, robust bees. If he wouldn't medicate them well, he would have sickly bees that would die and also infect other bees as far as in the region, not just honeybees, but any type of wasp or hornets or anything that come in to rob out or take away from he has a dead hive that would come in and take the resources. So that bacteria then is spread across a pretty wide range. Now that, when I say now, over the past few years, they know exactly what the problem is when it comes to the mites and how to solve it, okay, on how to best solve it. Now that's what we do. We do a lot of training, for example, and we just take the resources that are available from all the universities, and with those resources, we pass along the information and show that this, if you use this type of a treatment, you'll get this result. This is a national average, you know, right from the best to the worst. So it sounds kind of counterintuitive there to put a pesticide in with your bees. However, if we don't stop the mite, the virus load in the beehive gets so great that they are doomed. I mean,
What is meant by organic honey? Because I have purchased organic honey in the past. Does that mean they don't use the miticide, or that they
No.
don't spray the
That
plants
means-
in the area where the bees are? or
No,
what?
that means everybody has a different term. I believe our state's term, and I'm not going to swear to this, is you have to be in complete control of a 5-mile radius. Because any type of plant that's been put in a 5-mile radius that has any type of a systemic pesticide in it, like you would put an apple tree in, for instance, there may be a scab-free, disease-free tree as a homeowner because you don't want to spray the tree. Well, now it has a pesticide, herbicide, and fungicide in the nectar and in the pollen. So that would wipe out just that one tree in a 4-mile radius, for instance, would wipe out your ability to be an organic beekeeper.
So there are probably no organic beekeepers in West Virginia, you would guess.
I would have to ask the Department of Ag if they have any certifications out there because it's something that's certified.
I read, Ed, where you're working with the Department of Agriculture, that they were somehow interested in your operation because they thought you were getting better results than beekeepers nationwide.
We historically have gotten better results than beekeepers have. Okay, when we say that, commercial beekeepers, people that have, like Charles, for instance, that has a very good regimen of feeding his bees and medicating his bees properly, he does the same thing we do. We don't vary, okay? Because there is a best bee management practice, and it's best through science. When you compare our results, for example, to a standard beekeeper who doesn't really comply to the best management practices, yes, we'll be as much as 60, 70% better, so it's significant. And that's why we try and bring the education. For instance, coming here to Morgan County, putting on stuff at James Rumsey, to get that information, because it's not like it's hard to find. It's not a secret. We're hosting this evening, for example, the University of Maryland is coming in, and their director of their bee laboratory there, which is one of the best in the world, will be coming in and speaking for 2 hours. And part of that is answering questions. So if people have, the questions, instead of asking myself and Charles, we're not the biologists, we're not the geneticists, we're not the insect pathologists. They are, and they're world renowned. So whenever you get the information like that, it helps everybody in the community. So, yes.
I also read where you have a program with the Veterans Administration to get vets to look at this. Tell us about that.
Well, Charles and I we had training class yesterday, in fact. What there is the state of West Virginia started out a program called Veterans and Warriors to Agriculture. A few years ago, we were asked if we would like to be trainers, just volunteer some time. We had no idea that it was going to blossom into a labor of love and take up so much time. You never had any idea how many beekeepers are out there that are vets. Program's a little bit different, though. It's open to any vet or their family. And one of the things that they have found is PTSD. There's a lot of benefits to working with bees or anything in agriculture. That's the basis for the program. our own personal experience is a lot of times the folks that need the program the most would be the least that you're going to see. You're not going to see them. So we opened it completely to the public. That was our agriculture commissioner's idea, is to open it up to the public. So, for example, if you have a loved one in your family that's struggling, you can come in, you can learn, and then you can take that back to your veteran, or even if they're currently serving, if they're struggling at all. Then you can get them involved and help out in that way. So I say that's how that's being run. And now we're going into the VA system. We had a summit, I guess it was back around June. I guess it was, where Senator Capito brought together all sorts of federal officials out of DC, from the USDA, the Small Business Administration, the VA system. West Virginia University was involved with Extension, the Extension people, and these were all high-ranking officials. They weren't a lot of underlings. These are people that can make decisions. They brought in the leading psychologists from the National Center of Veterans Studies out of Utah. And Senator Capito came back out a few weeks later, and they were very excited. They were able to get into the 2017 budget with the VA, an agritherapy program, the basis of one, we'll put it that way. And quite happily, we're piloting that. So I say it's all good. I mean, it's all good. It's not as conventional as you think it might be, because we do bring the whole family in. But whatever we have to do for the vets is what we need to do.
That's great. We've got a couple minutes left. What is, I want to get a little bit into beekeeping for bees versus beekeeping for honey. Is it the same process?
It's similar. I mean, you need bees to make honey, and if you're making bees, you need bees to make more bees. So it's similar, but different.
Okay, so let's talk. What kind of bees do you got, and what does each one do?
Types
Queen,
of bees in a hive.
drone,
Yeah, so you
worker.
have the queen, you have the worker bees, and your drones, right? The biggest population there are your worker bees, which are females. They're sterile. I mean, they could lay eggs, but unfertile eggs. Your queen is the only one who could has a choice of laying fertile or unfertile eggs. A fertile egg will be a worker bee. Unfertile egg will turn into a drone. Drone are the males.
And what's the purpose of a drone? What does a drone do?
The drone is a genetic copy of the queen, and his sole purpose is to go out there and donate those genes to other virgin queens.
The queen is not a virgin.
She starts as a virgin. She flies and mates with
The drone?
Yeah, 10, 12, 20 drones.
At a
and
time?
comes back. Yeah, she's highly promiscuous. And that's good in beekeeping. She need that diversity for the colony. Because you have some bees that are good in collecting pollen. You have some bees that are good at collecting properly. And you need all of these things to keep that unit going successfully. So she goes out there and mates with several drones, and a prize queen is that one that has mate with many drones.
What do you do when you get too many bees? Because they keep reproducing, right?
Right.
Do you sell the bees?
I do sell bees. I split. Part of my swarm control is making splits, and yeah, we sell those.
So you sell both bees and honey.
Right.
And Ed, you sell only bees?
Well, yes.
What do you do with the honey?
We don't produce much honey, because what you're doing, and this is limited in time as
Yes.
we are.
Yeah.
Whenever you're growing bees, you have two things you can do. You're going to continue, as you said, they're going to grow. If you grow in an upward direction, adding boxes, that's what the honey supers, what people are familiar with, looking at a box and it's all full of honey. That's when you grow bees and they go in an upward direction. When Charles talks about splitting, what you're talking about doing is taking a portion of the bees from your box, removing them, putting them in another box, adding a queen, and you have another colony. Now see, that's what we're doing, and when we sell bees, we do it together. We do it in conjunction with each other, because the desire for the product, the people getting into bees, like here in Morgan County, we can't produce enough. We're going to be able to start, between Charles and I, somewhere around 700 new hives this spring, and there will be a demand for more than 700 new hives here in, Berkeley, Morgan, and Jefferson County, but especially Morgan County.
All right, now we got a minute left, so if people want more information on how to come to the meetings in Morgan County, how to go to your seminars and the workshops that you do, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, here in Morgan County, we'll do the simplest one first. Show up at Earth Dog every second Tuesday of the month.
At 6:30.
At 6:30. We start at 6 o'clock. We order dinner. 6:30 is not a formal thing, just show up. Our branch of advertising, per se, is Facebook. We are very active on Facebook. Geezer Ridge Farm, Geezer is in the eccentric old man that is up on the ridge that has a bee farm. So that would be me, Geezer Ridge Farm. And then with Charles and his Wholesome Goods, Walter's Wholesome Goods. We have information on the sites, and we try and share everything we can to give people a heads up where they can make arrangements to come, a number of weeks in advance. So.
Well, second Tuesday every month, Earth Dog 6:30,
Yep.
Geezer Ridge Farms of Facebook, and they can get in touch with both of you through that.
Correct.
Thank you both for joining us,
You're more than welcome.
and hope to have you on again soon. And
Thanks.
thank you for
Thank you.
watching This Week in Morgan County.